Joining me now, 3 members of New York's congressional delegation, Hakeem Jeffries, Gregory Meeks, and Yvette Clarke. Thank you all for being here this morning.
Thanks for having us, Brad.
You know, Congresswoman Clarke, it comes after several things this week as the administration came in that I don't think I've ever seen, and I've not been able to research an administration coming in with this kind of controversy. The historic gathering of women all over the country, mostly organic, some organized. The boycott of 60 members, over 60 members of Congress from the inauguration, the gatherings all week long, the Civil Rights March last weekend. I mean, it's like every day something going on. How does this translate into a real change as we go through the confirmation hearings?
Well, I think that we need to mobilize all of these folks who are very clear-eyed about this administration. And I think we have the tools in which to do that. These folks are very in tune with all that has taken place with respect to the election of Donald Trump. And they're very clear that their existence is at risk under his administration. Folks have been organizing organically,
right.
And I think social media has lent us a really effective tool at getting information out and mobilizing people. So I'm encouraged, quite frankly, by what we've seen across this nation.
What can the Congress, though, do, Congressman Jeffries, when you're in a minority with the Republican? What actually can be done, or should we be just moving toward the midterm elections next year in terms of organizing local areas?
Yeah, the midterm elections are going to be important, but Abraham Lincoln once made the observation when it comes to public policy making that public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. And so our job, particularly congressional Democrats, is to help shape public sentiment as it relates to the types of things that Donald Trump would like to do to undermine the ability of all Americans to really pursue the American dream. He comes in with a cloud of illegitimacy. Some people want to bury their head in the sands, but the reality is that the Russians interfered with the election. The FBI director interfered with the election. The fake news industry interfered with the election. And as the marches this weekend showed, he didn't win the popular vote, he lost it. A majority of Americans didn't vote for him, they voted against him. So the opportunity to help shape public sentiment is going to be on our side. And we've got to harness that energy that we saw this weekend into real opposition. And that may cause some of his co-conspirators in the House of Representatives or in the Senate to press the pause button to back down on some of his more controversial things like the religious registry, building a wall, like tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, right, if they see there's a populist uprising.
Congressman Meeks, you deal with in a lot of foreign affairs in Congress. How is the world looking at this? I mean, you see all of this, the things I outlined at the beginning, that because it's not just one thing, and then this historic, epic day yesterday of women marching all over. How is the world looking at incoming president, hasn't been there but, what, 2 or 3 days, and all of this has converged in the last 9 or 10 days?
Well, the world is very concerned. If you just listen to what he said during his inaugural speech, well, virtually he's talking about putting a wall around America and forgetting our allies and working collectively together.
An isolationist speech,
exactly
if I've
right.
heard it.
And so in a world where there's more interconnectedness, the outside world is very concerned. That's why you also saw marches not only in the United States, but all over the world, whether it was Germany or whether it was London or whether it was in Austria. So there's places all over the world. And as I talk to world leaders, they are calling and they are very nervous. They're asking how did the United States allow this to happen in the first place? And they're looking for some reassurances. And I think that what it's got to lead to is even some of my Republican colleagues, they're going to have to put country first as opposed to just the Trumpism message that's going through, because clearly Trump is going against everything that we have known as far as foreign policy for the last 3 or 4 decades. And so they are looking at this and asking the United States Congress to step up, because there's more than one branch of government. There's an executive branch, right, and there's a legislative branch, and the legislative branches have to do their part.
Can the legislative branch start blocking and do their part, as Congressman Meeks says, Congressman?
Well, we can definitely gum up the works. We can definitely push back there's a supermajority of Republicans in the House, and so, and the Senate as well. We're going to have to pick off members one by one. We have to make the argument, and we have to mobilize the American people. That is our job at this stage. We have to make sure that the interests that our communities are looking for us to protect, that we're doing that each and every day and every moment of every day, because the pushback from the Republicans are coming fast and furious, and there's a major distraction operation going on as well.
Yeah.
When you look at the executive orders, for instance, that were signed by the presidents, we heard about the Affordable Care Act, but we didn't hear about the Texas Voting Rights Act. We didn't hear about the housing mortgage piece. We didn't hear about the fact that the consent decree for Baltimore was delayed its implementation
by these executive orders. And that's where, again, the mobilization that we need to do comes together. Michael Moore and others say joining organizations and all, because you've got to be able to really bring in some of the points that people are missing while we're dealing with the headline stuff. He delayed the consent decree in Baltimore.
That's right.
He dealt with Texas in terms of voting rights, something that all of us have been about. And I think there's the challenge, because as we went through marches throughout the week, and then everybody was involved yesterday and supportive, and whether it was organic or organized, I thought about the 97 million Women's March. You had 1 million in one place. I mean, you talk about there was 2 or 3 million all over the country, but in one place, and in the 95 million man march. And I thought about the challenge coming out of there was, how do you organize and make this more than a day? And I think that all of this has to translate into that. When you see this man signing executive orders, reversing stuff, while he has us debating on numbers, he's executing as the chief executive of the country.
That's correct. You know, Donald Trump, he's a master of distraction, and so he floods the zone and causes misdirection. And so we're debating numbers, as you've indicated. And yes, it's clear. Washington, D.C., his inauguration was a ghost town when you compare it to Barack Obama's 2 inaugurations.
But his executive orders are not ghost towns.
Absolutely. And he's already beginning to undermine the things that Barack Obama was successfully able to do on justice and equality, and turn back the clock. And so we've got to turn up the temperature on him, beginning on Monday when we get back to Congress, utilize the floor of the House of Representatives, speak directly to the American people about what is at stake, their very well-being. Donald Trump has talked the talk as it relates to hardworking Americans, but he's put forth a cabinet filled with people who have done their very best to enrich themselves throughout their entire lives and undermine everyday Americans. We're going to have to continue to raise those issues, and if we do, we can turn the tide in advance of the 2018 midterms.
Congressman Meeks, the voting rights is one of the things that's been very much a concern, was a concern all throughout a lot of the rallies and the marches, even even the women raised it yesterday. Can this Congress be challenged to come with a map? Because the Supreme Court said that the map is outdated. It didn't say you couldn't have a map. Can this Congress say the map should be all 50 states and begin drumming up now and make that the litmus test for the 2018 midterm elections on those that would support a 50-state map and those wouldn't? I mean, when do we start directing some specifics in front of a lot of this energy?
Well, I think that that's exactly what should take place and will take place. You know, the Congressional Black Caucus, for example, under the leadership of Chair Cedric Richmond, we've already developed a letter that we're talking about, that we're going to send out to all of America so that they can follow. And voting rights is #1 on that list, because that's how you do make the difference. You know, some of my concern with Donald Trump right now is that, you know, as President Obama said, let's not clap him, let's vote him out. And we've got to have a strategy. Some of the, when we look at the DNC moving forward, it's got to be a strategy on all 50 states to make sure that we make voting absolutely accessible and easy for people to do it.
Congresswoman, I'm out of time, but I must ask you, he's had these selective meetings. It's almost like he's doing the red carpet on a show rather than operating as president-elect and president. Is he going to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus? Is he going to meet with leaders of civil rights organizations? Or is he only meeting with people that basically agree with him and does the red carpet?
Well,